Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the April 14th, 2021 regular meeting of the Board of Adjustment of the Municipality of Anchorage. I'm Robert Stewart, the acting chair. Madam Clerk, would you call a roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Stewart.
Here.
Mr. Deek.
Here.
Miss Peace.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, we have a quorum. We can now move forward. Let's take a look at the meeting agenda for today. And does anybody have any changes or updates or anything to the meeting agenda?
No.
Nope.
Okay, I have one. I'm going to, on old business, I'm going to cover an update on a motion just so that you guys know what's happening or what happened. Otherwise, I have no changes. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion passes. I would like to recognize that in addition to the board members, we have our deputy clerk, Jennifer Venneklassen, and our board counsel, Mr. Dennis Wheeler. And it looks like we also have some audience in the background also. And I'll address the audience at the end of this. Okay. Let's take a look at the minutes for the March 25th meeting. Have you had a chance to both go through the minutes themselves?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I would like to make a motion to approve as presented.
Okay. Before. Oh, go ahead and second. Then I've got some discussion.
I'll second, and I have one point of discussion.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Pease.
It's just something I didn't catch on the first read through. Is this the right time to address the actual wording of the findings, or do we address that when we move to adopt the preliminary findings?
Well, if there's a difference in the finding, we should address it now because this is part of the minutes, because
okay,
what this should do is reflect what is going to be in the actual conclusions, findings, and the what do we call it?
decision. Or
Yeah, I guess
I'll just go ahead and say it. It's just a word choice, and it may be too picky, but in preliminary finding number 6, the current reading is that the staff report at R-008 incorrectly designated surrounding area to the west of the subject property as GR1. And just because planning designation is an action that you take to apply a zoning. And really what happened here was they incorrectly labeled or recorded the surrounding area. So it's minor, but if this is a legal matter, so I just wanted to make sure that wasn't improper technical use of the word designated.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
yes.
I was, I guess, more generous here, but I think that what happened is a misidentification. So incorrectly identified surrounding area probably would be the best way to do this.
That would be great. Yeah. Incorrectly identified instead of incorrectly designated.
Council, do you have any problem with that?
No, sir, that's great.
Okay. Um, I have a couple of things that I wanted to go over. I like to be able to ensure that we do our best job at trying to make things self-sufficient as they read through them. And I found that people tend to look at one version, and if it's not complete, they don't look elsewhere to find out what it means. But on page 2, where the motion is that the Board of Adjustment shall consider attachments B and C as part of the matter. I was wondering, Council, if we should add in there in paren or something. Can we do this? Paren after C, of appellant's brief filed on January 26, 2021. For clarification, in case somebody wants to know where that comes from.
Sure. Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
And
could you repeat which fund? Or
It's
it was
after
the
4.
motion?
it's the motion on the bottom of page 2.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, I would accept that a clarification. I think it's very much in order. Thank you.
okay. And I would like to do the same thing on page 3, where we just say that it's the second major issue down, that attachment D shall be considered as part of this matter. Put in parens after D, of appellant's brief filed January 26, 2021. That would be the same thing. The other thing I have is just some format. I'm sorry. The first 4 findings were in fact preliminary findings. And the rest of these are findings that were made on issues. And I'm going to clarify that in the conclusions. But what I'd like to do here is strike on finding, it says preliminary finding number 5. Strike that preliminary and just, it should just read finding number 5. And then at the bottom of the page, it should just strike the preliminary. It should just read finding number 6. And do the same with finding number 7, finding number 8, finding number 9, finding number 10, finding number 11, that's on page 4. And then on page 5, it would be, instead of the preliminary finding, it would be finding number 12 and finding number 13, finding number 14, finding number 15, finding number 16 on the next page, page 6, finding number 17, and then just a minor typo on the bottom in that finding number 17, implementing mitigation. There should be a T in there, so it should read mitigation to the maximum extent possible. Just missing a T, that was it. Then preliminary finding number 18 would be changed to finding number 18. Same thing with clerk's note. It reads now that there was no preliminary finding number 19 offered. It should read there was no finding number 19 offered. The next one should be finding number 20. And that was it.
Mr. Chair, I have a question about this then. So as I read it, we were looking at these findings with the information we had at hand, but because at that time they were preliminary, I'm trying to think if the motion was made for preliminary versus finding, but I think you're correct. We made the motion for a finding to be part of the record, part of our action.
Yeah,
So I would accept the modifications as you stated. That's probably a good housekeeping action.
yeah, we're purely differentiating between the preliminary findings, the first four, and then after that, we go into issues, and that's where the findings were made and started.
I see the logic in it, and I accept that for the amendment of the motion.
Okay, any other questions on the minutes? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
It's on the table already.
Oh, wait a minute, we already did that. Okay, you're right. Okay, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
I will, Mr. Chair. I just have one suggestion. Should we maybe modify the motion to approve the minutes as modified by board discussion?
You're right.
Yes.
That's
Mr.
correct.
Chair, I would like to modify the motion to add as amended to make sure that we have the changes noted as we discussed.
That's right. That's the way it should read. Good catch, Jennifer.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Stewart,
Yes.
Mr. Deek,
Yes.
Ms. Peace.
Yes.
That passes 3-0.
Okay. Now we get to the new, the first of the old business. I just wanted to cover the fact that the appellee had filed a motion for expedited decision, and they were asking that we wanted to seek a decision so that the remand could get to the planning and zoning for their May calendar date. And it was basically premised on avoiding economic harm to the project through delay. And I denied the motion because basically all appeals are in the same category when they start. They all have to run that risk. But the key part is that this body, the Board of Adjustment, does not have the wherewithal nor the code authority to manage expedited requests nor make demands on other municipal staff or municipal bodies to give an appeal priority from our standpoint. So that was denied on the 5th of April, 2021. I just wanted to bring that up so you'd know what was going on.
Mr. Chair, if I may, would you tell me the case number so I know that which one of the two it is?
The Board of Adjustment case is 2020-4.
Thanks.
Okay. Let's take a look at the findings of fact and conclusions, and how about if we just start on page 1 and we'll go on through it. Is that acceptable if we just start at page 1 and go through it? Or I think that's probably going to be the best because we got several pages to go through.
Just to clarify, if I may.
Yes.
Are we talking about page 1 of the minutes now? Or are we talking about page 1 of Mr. Wheeler's Board of Adjustment considerations summary of preliminary findings?
Yeah, we're talking out the preliminary findings of fact and conclusions that council has provided for us
Okay.
based on our discussions and our decisions that were made on the March 25th meeting.
Okay, there were two documents sent to us, one summary of preliminary findings, and one is findings of fact and conclusion, a text.
Okay, the summary of findings are going to be attached.
Okay,
So we'll go into the summary of findings after we get through the main part.
all right, very good.
Mr.
Okay,
Chairman?
I'm good with that process, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
if I might, based on the way that you described the pagination when we went through the summary as part of confirming the minutes, I suspect that you may have changed the font on your version of the findings of fact and conclusions for readability for yourself. So that means I'm guessing that your pagination may be different from what I have and what from the other members have. So when you reference a page number, you might have to even get more particular in terms of describing the exact paragraph you're referencing.
okay, you're right, because I've changed some, mine is a little bit bigger font. So it could have changed it. Okay, on the first page, you have the term legal issues means those matters. Is that in the last sentence? On the first page?
In my version, yes.
Okay, so that one's good. All right. Any changes or additions or deletions to the first page?
I'm not sure about my pagination, but under the category jurisdiction and standard of review is just
Yes.
Board of Adjustment should just be capitalized on the second paragraph. I don't know if you want typos or not.
I think we should.
Yes, please definitely call them out if you see them.
Okay, in general, in the text, Board of Adjustment has a capital B and a capital A, and in the second paragraph under jurisdiction and standard of review, it just uses
Okay.
lowercase.
Got it. Okay. On page 2, the last thing on my page 2 is B, attachment B on the bottom. Is that the same as yours that you're reading
Well,
from?
the heading is, the
There's the
text
heading.
is on page 3.
Right. Okay. So,
Mr. Chairman, it's been
yes.
many years since I've worked with the Board of Adjustment. In fact, as far back as when the Assembly used to be the Board of Adjustment, and certainly we have new technologies. I'm wondering, would it be helpful and would it be appropriate for me to screen share my version? It might be a lot easier for everybody to be looking at the same thing. We can make whatever edits and changes as we go if you'd like. We could.
Okay.
It of course would be visible to everybody if I did it that way.
Mr. Diak, Ms. Pease, is that okay with you?
Yeah, that would be helpful because I have a much smaller font. I'm looking at different pages.
Just a quick question to council then, does that mean that you'll real time change things as we go through it?
I'll use track changes so that you can see it as we work on it. And then once we're all the way through the document and we've reached a final conclusion, I will convert that to a final draft for signature or a final version for signature.
That sounds like a mighty good way to do it. I'm good with that.
Okay. I'll screen share.
Let's do it, Mr. Wheeler.
All right, please let me know when you can see my screen.
We can see, yes.
It's on.
Okay.
Yes.
I can make it a little bit bigger for you.
But it's probably okay, yeah.
Right
Good.
there.
That's better.
All right.
Thank you.
So there is going to be this blank real estate on the right where the track changes show up, just so you're aware of what that is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And that is,
So, Mr. Chair, then are we gonna jump back to page 1 to adjust the statement on the Board of Adjustment?
did you already make that change, Dennis? Yes.
Yep, it looks like it. Thank you.
Okay. We get about half of your page on there, so that's all right. No change, no other changes on 2. Let's go to page 3. Any changes to page 3?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have a little bit of a perplexity about the last sentence there on the first paragraph, which states the CUP could not have been approved by PCC unless the proposed use is consistent with a comprehensive plan. The wording of that in some ways implies correctness of the PZC decision, and where this whole hearing is about whether the PCC decision is in fact fully supported and according to the letter of the law. So I'm just a little hesitant about the wording of that sentence.
I guess I want to hear from council on this one.
Mr. Chairman, the idea here was to call out the legal standard, and I understand Ms. P's concern that the wording implies that we've concluded that they actually met that standard. So there may be a better way to phrase that.
Mr. Chair, if we may, since the intent is to state the standard, that maybe the adjustment is that something about PSD's PNZ PZC, I guess that's how we abbreviate it. So the PNZ is charged to approve plans, CUPs, when they are proposed and it's consistent, blah blah blah. So something along those lines, I think, would take away that concern which Ms. P stated, and I think she's correct about this.
What if I were to do something like, that might be a better way to say the standard
I
is.
think that
Yeah.
appears to alleviate your concern, Ms. Pease.
Yeah, yes, may not be approved.
Okay.
That works, yes, for me. That solves that.
I think that's a good fix. Okay, anything else on page 3?
No.
Okay, page 4.
The let's see, I'm just trying to cross check with what I have on my notes. So here again, we have the word designates. Okay, so there are a couple of uses of the word designates, and we, in our previous discussion, decided that identifies would be a better word. And then in the next paragraph as well.
Okay, that maintains consistency, so that's good. Okay, anything else on page 4?
I don't know, Mr. Chair, the paragraph, bottom paragraph, which is about the public comments issue. Appellant argues that the staff report mistakenly asserts. No, I think it's okay. Withdrawn.
Yeah, because the information was in fact in front of the board. It wasn't in the staff report.
Yes.
Mr. Wheeler, you were right. My pages are starting to show a little difference here. Okay, let's go to page 5 if there are no other questions on 4.
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any changes to 4. Does anybody else?
Nor 5, 4 or 5. I'm good with both.
Or 5, I'm sorry.
I'm just cross-checking with what's on the screen and what's on my printed copy, and no, I'm fine with the portions displayed on our screen so far.
Okay. Go to page 6.
Okay, just to clarify, section 4, does the application meet the 9 criteria for approval? That's the bottom of page 5. And so now that's the area
Yeah.
we're in, starting at top of 6.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. That's for my my changes in mine.
Yeah, that's
I have nothing on this page.
nothing.
Agreed.
Okay, page 7. Anybody have anything on page 7?
Nope.
Okay.
I didn't know anything either.
Let's move to page 8.
So, yeah, I have a concern over what's partly, it starts on page 8 and then spills onto page 9. So, the paragraph that starts as noted above, then there's a sentence that says the issue for us to consider is whether this CPU is required to offer affordable housing. Wedeking presumes the CUP is for community-based housing. And we do not discern in the record that any such categorization of the CUP property at issue as only eligible for community-based housing. I just don't remember discussing, and I didn't take detailed notes at that point in our hearing, whether we had a robust discussion on whether this is resort housing or community-based housing. Jumping down to the next paragraph, we did look at the question whether affordability is a requirement. We did discuss that at length, but I just, I don't remember us discussing that this housing project has to be labeled as either resort-based or community-based housing. So I'm not really, I would like to hear from the other members of the board, but I don't know that we found that this is required or not required to be community housing versus resort-based housing.
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Yes.
Ms. Pease is correct. I added this in there so that you could discuss it here to see if it's something that you want as part of the decision. When you look at affordability, as I dug into it deeper trying to write the decision, I realized that that term is tied to the community-based housing element. So I needed to underpin the discussion about how we get to the discussion of affordability. Well, you get there because there's this discussion in the briefing about community-based housing. So then that caused me to look at the plan and how it talked about the two different kinds of housing and trying to figure out how that might tie into a conditional use permit process. So this, these two paragraphs in here, starting with the plan in the middle of the page into here, is something that you should discuss and decide whether or not you want it to be part of your decision. And again, like I said, the reason I included it is because it helps me tie into the affordable housing concept.
And we had discussions on affordable housing.
Right. So for example, in the middle of this paragraph here, it starts with the plan says, quoting from the 95 Girdwood area plan, it says for community-based housing, this type of housing is intended to be affordable. That's where that notion comes from. So that's why I included a discussion about community-based and resort-based.
And those are the two distinctions in that particular plan as to how they were divided up, right? In Girdwood.
How do I answer this? The two types of housing were certainly discussed, yes. The question here is, did they actually designate some area within this appeal as community-based housing? And then further, did that then trigger some additional affordability requirement? And that's what I'm discussing in these two paragraphs.
I have a question about that, Mr. Chair. For the discussion we're going to probably have on this is that the issue, I think, stated clearly in the second paragraph, which starts as noted above. It does say that the issue for us to consider is whether this CUP required to offer affordable housing. That was the key, because that was a contention whether this development has to produce affordable housing based on the number of units being increased, and whether that's the intent of the plan. That's how I think we have gotten into the discussion. Now, as far as the plan goes, they do have designations for community-based and resort-based housing. And my reading, and I think maybe actually it's accurately the intent of that those statements were, is that the resort housing is associated with the resort, therefore physically it needs to be nearby. Community housing associates with residents which are long-term residents, and they're associated with places which are not associated with the resort. But I don't think it says anything about them being affordable.
I don't have that section right in front of me right now.
You're referencing the Girdwood area plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, no, the Girdwood area plan did say that community-based housing should be affordable. I don't have it in front of me either, but that's my recollection.
Mr. Chairman, the direct quotes from the plan are in this middle paragraph.
Oh, there we go.
Everything in quotes is directly out of the plan document itself. So, for example, right here, community-based, according to the plan, should be dispersed and kept low scale in order to blend in, et cetera. And this type of housing is intended to be affordable and be available for both seasonal and full-time residents. That's directly out of the plan document itself.
Okay.
So with regard to this paragraph, I understand Mr. Wheeler's trying to provide the context. I think, you know, a couple changes that might better reflect what we discussed. I guess I would insert before Mr. Wedeking presumes, I would say, in raising the issue of affordability, comma, Wedeking presumes that the CUP is for community-based housing, triggering the affordability requirement. The next sentence.
Ms. Pease,
Yeah.
could you please try to say that intro again? Let's have a little, if I can type a little faster.
Okay. In raising the issue of affordability. Yeah, Wedeking presumes or implies, I don't know what's on his mind in terms of presumption. But that's the next question. We do not discern in the record that I'm unsure of. We do not discern in the record or code any such categorization of the CUP property at issue as only eligible for community-based housing. And that's just, we didn't discuss that.
Wasn't that discussed by the P&Z?
I don't, and we have to go back and look at the P&Z record, but I don't think they dug into the Girdwood area plan with great detail to decide whether this was community-based or resort-based housing. That's something we dug into.
And in my review of the record or code, I could find no such categorization. So it may be you can make the finding if you want to take a look here, because I could not find any reference to community-based housing in as described here.
Mr. Chair, I would also like to go back to the statement, because as I said earlier, I do not believe that community-based housing necessarily equals affordability. The intent is that it will be affordable, but I do think that that the location is what drives this this distinction, and the location at this particular area is definitely community-based.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It can be community-based, and whether or not it's affordable, is that another way?
Yeah, I think we have gotten, I kind of struggled with this issue of affordability at the hearing as well, because you know, the definition of affordability is a little bit tricky in code for sure.
Yeah, there's the definition in there that requires, that tells you how to figure out if it is in fact affordable. But again, we're dealing with intent here.
Yes. So maybe what we are agreeing upon is that just like in the findings, we did agree on that affordability is not the driving criteria, but to support that statement, I don't think this statement reflects that we do agree that I think it is community-based housing. The issue is whether we also believe that it must be affordable and meet the intent that way.
Well, but affordability is not in the code.
I believe that's why we had the finding, and I'm gonna look at which one it was.
The finding is number 20.
Yeah, I'm reading through it that I do think that finding is as stated. I think that is reflecting what we have came to as a conclusion, and maybe we need to look at whether what we have what we see here is reflecting that, and I think the discussion really is about whether the previous sentence, which is whether King presumes the CUP is for community-based housing, triggering the affordability requirements. I don't think we had any concerns about it being community-based, but we had concerns about whether that directly translates to a requirement in the review to be affordable.
Mr. Chairman, with this work, we could delete everything that I've highlighted in yellow, which is the issue of whether we can confirm it's designated in some form or fashion as community-based, and instead treat that as the assumption. And then we get to the issue of affordability. So we would just delete all of this.
I think that would clarify
Okay.
that, in my view, at least it would.
That would alleviate the issues that we're having with that wording.
Yes, I think that works.
Mr. Diak?
Yes, I'm just looking at the process here, Mr. Chair. So with this particular issue, are we concluding this issue? Because I have another one I would like to raise.
I don't see anything else on it. Do you have another one on page 8?
Page 8, my labeling, it may be page 7 on the record here. The back a little bit, the paragraph which starts with, do not assume that the timing of the zoning adoption is controlling. If you look at that paragraph, I think it's the page 7 bottom now on yours. Okay, so I like that we're talking about sites as late as 2015. The plan is still cited. I think it's cited with a C.
Yeah.
That was supposed to be a land use pun. My apologies.
I got that pun, Dennis. It's a good one. I like it, but I think we should have the right word. Even from a foreigner, that's not right.
Thank you.
Well, I did cite it from here. Okay. Anything else on page 8? Okay, let's go to the next page. I don't have any changes on this page.
Mr. Chairman, I have one recommendation. Given our previous discussion about community-based housing, I think you may not like this phrase right here.
I agree.
Well, but that's still true when you look at the
Yeah.
Girdwood plan.
I understand, but unless you were willing to make that as a finding, which I think you didn't in the previous hearing, so you could do it now, which is begs the question of going back to this discussion, or we eliminate that first phrase.
Okay, that would read then, nothing in the law requires CUP to be issued on a condition of affordability.
Right.
Yeah. All right. I would rather just go ahead and delete that portion right there.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay. Anything else?
Let's see.
Okay.
Yeah, in this paragraph here, I was just a little bit unsure of the tone or the language for the sentence that begins after footnote 57 in the middle of the paragraph there. Appellant, without explicitly saying so, appears to be asserting that the purpose or intent of the zoning district includes alleviating a housing shortage. The Girdwood area plan had that language. I don't know whether the appellant asserts that the intent of the, yeah, I guess, I guess that's just my desire not to speak for someone else. So maybe it's without explicitly saying so. Maybe that's enough of a quality. Did anyone else have any issue with that statement?
Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't have any issue with it because it was, they were talking about alleviating a housing shortage in the staff report and all the way through and including in the briefs. And I believe the appellant even said that they agreed with what was in the staff report, that it would alleviate a housing shortage.
Okay, I guess I'll just accept it as is.
Okay, Mr. Diak?
I'm thinking about this because I would have to look up the actual the reply brief by the appellant acknowledges that the police are correct in the statement that the appellants are aware of that Girdwood has a housing shortage. I totally recall that, but then the previous sentence, wouldn't that be the appellee stating that?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Yeah.
if I might, and I'm quoting from the appellant Wedeking brief as noted in footnote 57 and 58. And to quote it, it says, "There is no evidence in the record that demonstrates a housing shortage or what type of housing is lacking in Girdwood, single family, multifamily, low income, high density, etc. Therefore, alleviating the housing shortage in Girdwood as a basis for granting this conditional use permit should not be a valid reason. We understand that the developers plan to construct higher end, high price point condominiums. No evidence is provided that this is a necessary housing type needed in Girdwood." And that argument is made under criteria number 2 for the conditional use permit, which says the use is consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning. So I'm trying to tie those two things together. Their argument about the housing shortage issue as it may apply to criteria, which is what is the consistency of this application with the purpose and intent of the zoning. And so what I'm trying to do is make the connection that I think the appellant is trying to make, which is, without explicitly saying so, they appear to be saying that the purpose or intent of a zoning district, particularly this zoning district, must include eliminating a housing shortage, which criteria 2, as best this board determined, doesn't address housing shortages.
Yeah, would that be perhaps a more accurate way to describe that? Appellant acknowledges the purpose or intent of the zoning district, including alleviating a housing shortage, but also the statement on that their argument was exactly the opposite what it seems to imply here, which is this whole idea of alleviating housing shortage is not supported by the fact that housing shortage in fact exists.
Through the chair, I think the appellant refined their argument to some degree in the reply by alleging the issue isn't so much the shortage per se. They seem to acknowledge there is a shortage, although as you noted in your discussion, you didn't have any hard evidence of what the shortage was. But they refined their argument to focus on what kind of housing should be allowed here to address the understanding of a shortage. And again, the issue is, how does that fit in with criteria 2, if it fits in at all? And I think this board determined that it doesn't.
Yeah.
I guess
Right.
is the appellant asserting that the purpose or the intent of the zoning district includes alleviating a housing shortage, or that the conditional use, the purpose of the intent of a conditional use is to help alleviate a housing shortage by going to the higher density? I guess that's maybe where I felt this sentence I drew attention to is not quite accurate.
I think one of the reasons why I would concur that there is something, this is not a feelings-based business, but it feels like that that the appellant doesn't necessarily assert they acknowledge that actual intent exists. That's my beef with that. So if we say that appellant without explicitly saying so appears to acknowledge that the purpose or intent of the district includes alleviating housing shortage, I could be a little bit more comfortable with that.
Through the chair, Mr. Diak, with that phrasing, it suggests that that actually is part of the intent of the zoning district. And I think that's the issue, where in the purpose and intent of zoning, particularly for this zoning district, does it say that this zoning needs to address a housing shortage? If the zoning said, hey, it needs to alleviate a housing shortage, then you could say, okay, does a conditional use permit as submitted meet the criteria of being consistent with that purpose? But if you don't find the purpose and intent to begin with, then the conditional use permit has nothing to comply with.
Yes, but see, I think the appellant would argue it sounds like what it sounds to me. It says the opposite, which what the intent of the appellant's brief was. It seems to me that it describes the opposite outcome from where they were arguing, which was increased housing densities are not. In their view, not needed because it's not required to alleviate housing shortage, any kind of CUP. That's how I read this whole argument.
Yeah, I agree. I think they refined their argument down to their issue being with the type of housing. So I think the presumption is somewhere there's a requirement to alleviate a shortage. And in order to alleviate the shortage, in this case, the type of housing has to be focused on the type of shortage. So if the shortage were, for example, as they argued earlier, affordable housing, then they're making the argument, okay, well, there's a shortage of affordable housing, and this CUP must then provide
Yes,
affordable housing because
yes.
it needs to address the shortage. And
Mhm.
the board's concern was with, well, where does it say, and again, we're only focused on criteria too. Where is it in the purpose and intent of the zoning district a requirement to have the CUP address a shortage?
Mhm.
There's nothing in there that requires that.
Well, that's my understanding of the board's
Yes.
decision. Yeah.
I think it's fine the way that it reads. I don't have any changes. Because it gets to the same result.
Okay, I'm just leave it as is then.
Mr. Diak, do you have any changes you want to see in there?
I'm mulling it over and with the logic of the argument and I think no, I will conclude that I will accept how it's written.
I'm gonna go back and just try one more question here. What if it's the purpose or intent of the conditional use permit? No, never mind. There's nothing in the conditional use permit that, yeah, never mind.
Sorry, just so you know what I'm doing on the screen here. I was thinking I need to capitalize this, but then I realized it's inside the quote from the reply brief, so it needs to it should maintain their the way they had written it. Whoa, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, page 10.
Fine with that.
Yes.
Can you raise it up so I can see the bottom on that one, Dennis? Okay, hang on just a second. This is just a minor thing, but in that paragraph where it starts out under AMC, in the third sentence down, it shall be considered that the facts is support. Should that read the fact? We're talking about a fact. The fact is supported by substantial evidence.
And supported.
There we go. Okay, I just happened to see that. Okay. I don't have any other changes on that page.
No change here either.
So here I have I guess typo standards in the paragraph that starts as to any district specific standards. The only, I think there needs to be an insertion of the only standard applicable. And then it's a little awkward in the rest of that sentence to say is that housing can occupy more than one principal structure. I think people occupy generally, so housing can consist of or some other verb.
You could say the lot can have more than just one main structure
Yeah, that would be fine.
or one principal.
I'm going to, it references back to footnote 33. I'm going to roll up there. I think it's a code site, and so we can check the code site to make sure we get the wording right. Oh, it's in the brief. Okay. Bill's brief, page 31. All right, tell you what I'm going to do. Let's see, where were we? That'll be my homework assignment.
Yeah, I think that covers it.
Well, I think Dennis, that whole section there it's about what housing means and how I think that Nancy is right about that housing can consist more than one principal structure or something along those lines. You'll probably find that.
Yeah, it looks like it's here in this 2109-040.
Yeah,
I can actually,
fine. I mean, all it is just clarify the statement. I think she called it awkward. Maybe that it clarifies it a bit better.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. That'll Dennis can make that look kind of mirror what the code says. But I'm
Yeah.
sure that's what it said. I remember reading it.
yeah, the code actually says more than one principal structure may be allowed on any lot or tract.
Yeah.
So I can rephrase that to more closely match that code site.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's good. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on that page?
Oh, let's see. No, I think I'm good with that one, as shown on the screen.
Ms. Page, anything else on that one?
Nope.
Okay. Let's move to the next one.
But in our previous discussion, I'm sorry, I should know this, but did we discuss dust or pavement on Gunny Sack? This just talks about the dust being mitigated for Sproat Road and the interior driveways.
Mr. Chairman, the way I recall it is that when you ask on remand that Gunnysack be taken another look at, that would presume also that things like noise, dust, et cetera, along there would be considered. That may be further down in the.
No, it's under the criteria 6, the second underlined paragraph. It talks about that insufficient evidence.
Okay. There we go.
But through the chair, I think that was specific to originally specific to Sproat, but I think because you asked for a further examination of Gunnysack or access to Alyeska, that would still be an issue, noise and dust related to traffic.
Yes.
That's kind of what this is getting at. Yep.
Yeah, I just didn't want it to sound dismissive in one paragraph and then, it brings it up in the other paragraph. And I just didn't know whether that seemed to be internally contradictory.
Well, I think if they look at Gunnysack Road, they're going to have to apply the same standard there.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, 6. Okay. Anything else on that page?
Let's see. I think would you please scoot back a little bit? Maybe we are. I'm looking at this paragraph. It says criteria 6 focuses on compatibility. with allowed uses, not existing uses. That has been my, I guess, contention even during the discussions we had and the findings we made, because the zoning district does talk about existing uses, and I think for sure the Girdwood area plan does. And this was a discussion we had on whether compatibility is measured only on potential of full build out or what is in existing at that location. And the zoning district adjacent is a different type than the one which is being developed. So so there is that issue of compatibility, and I'm trying to recall that how we resolved that, because stating it like this, you're correct. Criteria 6 focuses on compatibility with allowed uses. But I think what we have not stated here is that the Girdwood area plan actually does recognize the issue of compatibility. Dennis, do you recall that discussion on that? Trying to find a map. Of course, I didn't bring it up on my computer.
Yeah, through the chair, Mr. Diak, without meaning to oversimplify what the plan says, I do think the plan talks about certain areas, such as this area, as trying to maintain that small town feel.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it does talk about that as one of the themes for the plan.
At least with regard to community-based, multifamily housing should be dispersed and kept low in scale in order to blend in with the small town atmosphere of the community rather than resemble that of a more urban setting. That's from the Girdwood area plan.
Well, doesn't that apply across the board when you're looking at the cup? We're looking at allowed, but if you look at the existing patterns and the characteristics of those patterns, I think that I think it's taken into account, but it's not part of criteria 6.
What I'm missing here is, yes, criteria 6 states what it states, and it's correctly asserted here. But criteria 6 is not code, and also it's not a planning document. It's a measure for CUP criteria to be presented for consideration. And I think, unless you correct me, Dennis, I think what is maybe missing here is that we have not acknowledged the discussion on the area plan actually talking about compatibility of scale.
So you're certainly welcome to discuss scale under criteria 6 because that's part of the elements in it.
Mm-hmm. Which we did, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, we had the discussion. We started out looking at, I think, the characteristics, and then went back to allowed uses.
Maybe I think what would make me a little bit more comfortable with this, that the criteria 6 focuses on compatibility with allowed uses, not existing uses, while the Girdwood area plan, I don't know, acknowledges a compatibility of scale and then cite the page or something.
I don't know. What do you think about that, Mr. Wheeler?
Through the chair, Mr. Dick, you want to quote something from the plan?
I would like to reference that intent exists in the plan, because with this statement here, we're basically saying that every application will have to consider only projected full development, full build out at the maximum, and the Girdwood area plan clearly doesn't support that statement. It doesn't mean that the project is out of scale. I just don't want to imply that we have not recognized that the area plan does say you need to look at that issue.
And through the chair, Ms. Pease, do you have a page site for that?
To be honest, the problem with it is that I did not bring up my
The Girdwood area plan, are you saying, asking?
yeah, if you
Yeah.
look at where the intent is for that area, for that housing,
Page
Yeah.
48 of the Girdwood area plan is what I read from.
Is the Girdwood area plan showing on your, showing
yes,
up
it
for
is.
you?
Yes.
It is
Okay,
showing.
I
Yes.
dragged it over so we could go look.
Thank you.
Page 48 is where it talks about low
Sorry.
scale in order to blend into the small town atmosphere.
Whoop, went too far, sorry. Okay. Hold on here, let's see if I can,
Getting close.
couple more pages.
One more page.
47, okay.
There we go. There it is, right in the,
This right here,
yeah, that's what I,
and you
Hold
want, how much of this do you want?
Just I would like to acknowledge that it exists. So what I would say is that that sentence which says criteria 6 focuses on compatibility with allowed uses, not the existing one, while the Girdwood area plan acknowledges, and then do that. Or I guess Girdwood area plan's intent is.
So what you're doing is trying to show both sides right there.
Yes, since we have discussed it at length.
I'm gonna have to clean this up, of course.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. I think that's a fair way of presenting it.
Nothing else on this page for me.
I don't have anything else there either. Just above the bold criteria 7, in that last sentence, it says we find I'd like to change that to the BOA fines and bold it.
Bold it, you said?
Yeah. Because that way that will key them that there is a finding that matches that.
Okay.
And I'd like to bold also, and therefore remand. Just therefore remand, yeah.
And the therefore is missing an E.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, anybody else have anything else on that page?
Do not.
Okay, we're on page 14.
I was fine with that.
I'm good here too. Mr. Diak?
Yes,
Okay,
I'm good with that.
that's 15.
Okay, so here, are we ready to talk about this page?
Yep,
So, just in terms of tone, I guess, this first paragraph that says, we assume that it is common knowledge. I'd like to take out the, it is common knowledge. I think we as the board can assume, but I don't think a lot of people think about state of Alaska's highway access policies. So if that's okay, I'd like to take that out. And then seeks to minimize access points onto, it says roadways, but from my perspective, I would say highways. You know, the state of Alaska has a number of roads that are not necessarily limited access. That would reflect, the sentence would then reflect my assumptions.
Yeah, I see that. Although I think it's called Alyeska Highway, so yeah, it seems
It
reasonable.
is called Alaska Highway, so yeah. That's why we might assume it for this highway.
okay, so does that mean the same thing as a major collector? Or a collector road?
Where do you see that?
Or is it different?
We're just talking about what we assume. Well, you know, I guess I think of,
Onto highways?
Yeah.
Would
I mean,
it,
there are
would
roads
it,
like Tudor Road where there's all kinds of access onto it. So,
would it help if I just, rather than highways, if there's a worry about labeling, I can put certain rights of way?
Yeah, we can do that.
okay,
Yeah, that would avoid
Can't remember
the
if it's,
issues. Certain rights of ways.
okay, that's good.
That works better.
should that be pluralized, certain rights of ways or certain rights of way?
It's
Right,
right
so-
this way.
It's rights of way.
Okay.
Yeah. No S on the end. Okay, anything else on that page? What do we got down on the bottom?
I think, Mr. Chair, to be consistent in that one paragraph below, it says we did not find, oh, sorry. Without this evidence, we must remand for a determination. Do we not want to do that? That BOA must remand, oh, the highlighting as you stated in the previous one?
Mr. Diak, can you help me find where you are? Are you talking about this last sentence here?
It's three, let's see, go up further. It's the paragraph two paragraphs above, which starts with 3 MJs. And in there, it says, I think about halfway, it says, without this evidence, below your cursor, we must remand for a determination as to whether state allow access. I think if we did the emphasis in the previous one, do we not want to do that here?
I think what I did is sort of explained it here, but then actually made the action down here.
Okay, all right, that's fine. If chair is okay with it, I'm okay with it.
No, I'm okay with it down there because that then goes back to the finding and or the motion and the conclusion.
All right, then that's good. Thank you.
Okay, hang on just a second. On that last paragraph, number 2 on the conclusions. What I'd like to do is to add in there after the approval, semicolon, strikes A3 from the PNZ or PZC resolution number 2020-025.
I'll type it out more fully.
Okay. And okay, that's all I've got on that page. Anybody else have anything on this page?
Well, the only thing about this one is we discussed this at length is that feasibility, as we have not really defined it here, I don't think it was our call, but feasibility is I think it was argued in the application that Gunnisec Road, I think it's Gunnisec Mine Road, right? You may want to change that.
Mine.
Yeah, yeah, it
Mine
says
Road.
road.
You may
line,
want to change
you're
that,
right.
Dennis. But so Gunnisec Mine Road, right above it.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
So Gunnisec Mine Road, it's not feasible to do the job. It's just expensive. It makes the project not pencil, I think was the quote. It doesn't make it physically infeasible. So I guess they're gonna look at that, but I wanted to make sure that that whole issue comes up at PNC. And if this captures that with saying feasible, then I think we did our job. And I think it does that.
Through the chair, Mr. Diak, I think, just to be clear on what you're saying, I don't think you're saying feasibility is purely a physical requirement or purely a fiscal or monetary requirement, right? Feasibility may have elements of both of those.
It may, but if you look at
we don't-
other
yeah.
if you look at other processes, we go through like the hardship clause for plats. There is illusions that that hardship, just clearly financial hardship, it's not good enough for that criteria to get variances, for example. So so I would like to make sure that we are not gonna look at a simply I guess a pro forma telling us whether it's feasible or not. It has to be feasible for other reasons as well.
Yeah, I think for purposes of this appeal, in terms of how it's currently postured, I think it's okay to not delve into what is meant by feasibility, right? Because we haven't examined that issue in your discussions.
Yes.
Feasibility is the key word that's used in the code. So whatever that means, the parties can present and debate that with the PZC. And then if there is an appealed issue related to that, that comes to us later, then we can dive into it more. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, thank you. That's where I was heading, that we have this process, because I want them to really, because it's gonna go back there. I want them to really look at it with all aspects of this, both financial and physical. So no other comments from me on that.
Okay. I would like to add a paragraph 3 right after, yeah, the moot issue going to 3. And I think we need to include the remand issues and that are set forth in 2103-050A 13D. Because basically what that whole section says, that if it goes back to remand, they've pretty much got about 20 days to appeal the P&Z. And if there's no appeal there, then the Board of Adjustment decision becomes final 30 days thereafter. So I think that has to be just brought on board and kind of wordsmithed a little bit.
Can you see my screen? I've got that code section
Yep.
highlighted for you.
Yep, that's it.
So, Dennis, if you can pull it back, I would like to.
Here it is. Over here it is, right here.
Okay, I guess you did pull it back. Thank you. So, so the Board of Adjustment's decision remanding the case is and shall state that it is the final decision with respect to all matters affirmed by the Board of Adjustment decision.
Well, it's really not final until there is no appeal after the remand. That's why in the old section they took that, I think they dropped that that section about it's final with according to all the things that we ruled on. It really, our decision really doesn't become final until after that period is over and there's no appeal. I initially thought that same thing, that I thought we were going to have to put in other findings and decisions of P&Z are affirmed. Well, that is included in this area right here.
Yeah, but basically what we are doing is, I mean, I'm fine with referencing the process, which is telling the parties that that from here an appeal may be possible going to the Superior Court. I mean, it outlines that. That's what you want to make sure that we have that acknowledged. Is that what you're trying to do?
All they have to be is we have to put it in. This section tells us that we shall put that in there, and that gives them the process on how to do that. Once that process is completed at the planning and zoning, and nobody perfects an appeal, then that starts running the 30-day requirement for them to appeal to the Superior Court of our decision. And one of the things that we have to do as a Board of Adjustment is try to make sure that we can have a final decision on any case that comes before us. We have to try to handle everything. So this is the methodology to do that. So it doesn't have to come before us again.
Okay. Mr. Wheeler, I suppose, I mean, obviously it's code, but I recall there were issues which have gotten appealed back to us, maybe because it was not exactly the same issue, perhaps. Can you maybe help me help me understand why or how this is crucial?
Yeah, I think the idea is that, you're remanding part of the case. The part that you're
Yes.
not remanding is essentially done, but I think the idea here is we want to deal with some form of consolidated appeal, so that if there is a dispute after P&Z makes its next decision, and there's still some discomfort with your decision here on the things that are not being remanded, then this is a way to try to get all that wrapped up into a single appeal, if possible.
But then
So
going to the Superior Court and skipping this body. That's what I see.
you would not rehear the items that you're not remanding. Those would be ready for appeal after the lower body deals with the remand issues.
Yes.
Yeah, and then once that's done, then someone could appeal and hopefully combine or be required to combine both the remanded issues and the issues that were final by your decision today. In any
Thank
event, we need to put this in, and if there's some debate about exactly what this means, it'll be dealt with when people raise the debate. But I think, if there's a question about how to interpret this, we'd probably kick it over to the municipal attorney's office.
Yeah, I
Let them
don't think
figure it
I
out.
want to question that. I just wanted to
Yeah.
get some clarification on how the process will work, and I'm fine with including it. It's just a code reference.
Yeah, the highlighted sentence, the way I read it, is that once that lower decision's done on remand, that's when the appeal clock really starts ticking on the whole thing.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. And I guess this is just an one. It's number 3. Then the whole thing. That 4 is just we're not gonna have a 4th paragraph, right?
Yeah, that combines into one paragraph.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
gotta do a little cleanup there.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, since we also have findings and motions, I think we're going to attach that. And on that page on the bottom, I would put attachment, call it summary of findings and motions. And the reason I say summary of findings and motions, I'd like to make a couple additions.
So, Mr. Chairman, I believe I referenced the attachment right here at the beginning.
I think it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I
Oh,
don't know if you need to mention it again. You're certainly welcome to if you want to, but
findings. Okay, all right. We don't have to do that then.
in terms of whether you want to make edits to it, let me pull that up for you.
And Mr. Chair, if this is Jennifer, if I might jump in, I took the summary directly from your minutes document. So 2 things, you could attach the minute instead if you wanted, I think. Or secondly, I could make the same change or same amendments to this summary document that you made at the beginning of your meeting in the minutes document.
Okay, I would like to add a couple more changes to what we did in the meeting documents.
Through the chair for Jennifer, I've got them pretty well captured, except that these 2 highlighted ones need to be fleshed out a little bit. So I'll get this over to you when they've finished whatever other edits they have.
Okay, I think that works.
Thank you, Dana.
Can we move on to the summary of findings and motions? Okay. On the attachment, what I'd like to do is it's capsulated Board of Adjustment consideration appeal of 2020-4 hearing of March 25th, 2021. Yeah, okay. To make it comport with exactly what we have in the decision, right underneath that, the two bold headings, I would add summary of findings and motions, and that's the same phrasing that we use in the document early on. And then just above preliminary finding number 1, I would make that preliminary findings in bold. And the way we discussed this in the when we had our meeting is right between preliminary finding number 4 and right on the top of finding number 5. I would put in there and bold it is issues. That would distinguish between the preliminary findings and the issues as they were identified in the meeting. And those are the only changes that I have, because the rest of it has all been changed when we went through the minutes.
That seems consistent.
Anybody else have anything?
No.
The only thing is just catching, like I see identified is already in there. So those follow-ups with the minutes to match. That's all.
Okay. Mr. Wheeler, do you have anything else that we need to clean up in here, or have any questions that you want to throw at us?
No, sir, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, with that said, then the only thing that I think we're looking at is I'd like to hear a motion to approve the draft of the Board of Adjustment meeting, or Board of Adjustment findings of fact and conclusions as modified by board discussion or something similar.
I move to adopt the findings of fact and conclusions as modified by our discussion today.
Second.
Okay. Do you want to stop that after board discussion, or do you want to add as today?
Well, I think as today, yes, I believe I said our discussion today. And please guide me, I'm still, new to this. If that's not appropriate, provide other substitute wording that would be better.
Okay. Mr. Wheeler, do you
Mr. Chairman, the reference to today is not required, and it doesn't do any harm either. It's as modified by board discussion is
Okay,
fine.
that's fine. All right, then skip the
Okay.
words today.
All right. Any discussion? Any further discussion? All right. With that, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The motion is to approve the draft of the Board of Adjustment findings of fact and conclusions as modified by board discussion. Mr. Stewart,
Yes.
Mr. Diak,
Yes.
Ms. Peace.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay. Hang on just a second. Okay, somewhere my agenda slipped in some papers here. But the only other thing we have is audience participation. Oh, let's go into any member comments first.
Well, I guess let me start then. You're shaking your head, Nancy, but I want to say something, and that is to council, thank you. This was helpful and looks like pretty efficient and meaningful. So thanks for your support. Also, Jennifer as well. And no other comments.
I guess I would just chime in and thank everyone for helping me through both this meeting and the original hearing. It's far more exacting than I could have imagined, and I thank you for your patience and your support.
Well, I think all of you had some very good comments and very critical look at this, and that's what we need is critical looks in light of what the law is. And I want to thank Mr. Wheeler for bringing up the issues about the enforcement provisions. And that, I think, is something that we've raised, and I think that's something that needs to be looked at by the municipality now. And I think they will probably use this case to do that. The other thing we'll go to then is audience participation. And I know that we have several people in the audience, and I appreciate you hanging with us going through this process. It's been very long, but I think we've come out with the right, with the just decision. The audience participation is limited because the Board of Adjustment cannot hear argument nor take additional testimony or other evidence on anything that's before the board. So you have to realize that everything that we addressed here is either in the law or it is contained in the appeal packet. So with that said, are there any comments or questions by any of the audience at this time?
Mr. Chair, this is
Yes.
Jennifer again. Just a note to the audience, I have muted most of the participants on my end. And so if anyone is trying to speak, they'll need to push *6 in order to unmute themselves, if they're calling in by phone.
Hi, this is Leah Ellis on, I live on Gunny Sack Mine Road, and I just wanted to say thank you very much. You guys have been very thorough in this investigation, so much appreciated.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
we didn't discuss this, but I imagine some of your audience members might be curious to know what the plan is next. I'm anticipating that I will clean this up. There isn't a heavy lift here, and prepare that for your signature. I'll email the final to you and the rest of the board members and Jennifer. So then, subject to your final review and confirmation that I did what you asked me to do, you should be able to sign that and coordinate with Jennifer about how to get that distributed.
Okay, I appreciate that, Mr. Wheeler. All right. Well, with that in mind, I think we have hit the adjournment point. Can I hear a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Second, and this meeting of the Board of Adjustment is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.